Air travel in America is more or less taken for granted, or at least has been. But in Europe, as we saw a few moments ago, security is getting tighter and tighter and tighter, as it should be. Particularly now that there have been more threats, these now against Scandinavian Airline, Air India, and we would suppose more to come. The question is, what do we do? That's right. We ask it of our guest, who is the chairman and CEO of a well-respected West Coast Detectives Incorporated. He's a 25-year law enforcement veteran. His expertise includes counterterrorism, and we welcome this morning Philip W. Little. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Susan.
Knowing that experts are telling us we really should not change the way we travel, at the same time telling us if somebody wants to bomb a plane, it will get done. Do you agree with what we heard on the news yesterday from a fellow, I think, president of a Travelers Association in America, who says, why don't airline workers use this standard? If they'd pull their own loved one off a flight, it's time to tell the public there's been a threat. If they'd put their loved one on a flight, don't tell us.
There's a real dilemma in the world, I think, today. And obviously, economic concerns were part of this last Pan Am situation. We've been involved in preventive security, and my theory is that prevention is cheaper than enforcement, so you try to prevent. We as a detective agency, many asked, you know, how did you get involved in this area of international terrorism? But we, of course, have consumer clients and we have corporate clients, and through our entertainment special services unit, we get involved in trip planning, trying to prevent this kind of a problem by going and knowing who the people are ahead of time, knowing what might happen. In this particular case, the dilemma was, do they notify and maybe shut down the airline industry, or particularly Pan Am? Well, I can empathize because I'm in the private sector with that. But on the other hand, then if you can't notify or don't feel you can notify, what do? In our perspective, what should have been done, particularly because we're operational, we look at this thing not from a theory or an analytical standpoint. How could we have protected this flight? If procedures would have been put in place, some that they're doing now and more, very possibly these explosives could have been detected ahead of time.
You keep saying several ifs in here, but yet you told me before when I met you in the green room that this explosion on Pan Am could have been prevented.
All right, let me first say here too that there's no security in the world that is 100%. I mean, we can't say 100%. But if let's look at this. You set up a risk factor is what you do. When a threat comes in, you get hundreds of these. We work threats from every type of industry every year. 99% of them turn out to be kooks. Well, you have a scale from 0 to 100, and somewhere in between here they fit. Now, this particular threat that came in leaped off the scale, in our opinion, because of this. You look at the past on terrorism. It's gone from buildings, from situations that were directly involved with the cause, to now it comes against innocent people, the least indirected. As Nietzsche said many years ago, kill one, scare 10,000. Right. Now, then we've moved to the terrorism becoming an arm of government. In many experts' opinion in Europe, it's the first phase of the Third World War. Then we had, in May or June, it became known that there was a group called Selves, which was an offshoot of Hezbollah. It's a surrogate. It's an organization that they can say, I don't know anything about it. And they...
However, if I may interrupt you, forgive me for doing that, we have heard that this was a hoax, irrelevant really, irrespective of the bomb that did go off.
Yeah.
The question here about that is, we read in the paper just today, there is thermal neutron analysis that could have detected even a plastic bomb like the Semtex we hear about. We also understand that many of the servicemen's bags happened not to have been investigated. Are you saying that there is a thermal neutron analysis that would have spotted that bomb no matter whether a threat against it was a hoax or not?
That's correct. There is, in fact, now they've stepped up the delivery of that. In 1982, 81 or 82, they started the technology of this, but it's been put on the back burner because of the cost and because of not the need. But the threat assessment here, which the people over there in Europe had to know, because we knew this intelligence information from our own sources and from the sources that we've developed. Now, this organization that was formed to hit American interest in Latin America and in the United States, then we had the downing of the Iranian airliner, and then right after that, there was a direct threat made against American Airlines by these offshoot groups. They're going to not hit a ship, not hit a building, but they were going to hit an airliner in retaliation for the Iran airliner that went down.
Are they coming to America? You list in your information 27 terrorist groups within the United States of America. 27. Are they, is this their next spot?
Yeah. Solus, this organization Solus, that's been trained in Red China, was trained primarily to hit American interests in Latin America and the United States. They now have the ability. In Nicaragua, they have the support, the terrorist training camps. Nicaragua is going to become the Lebanon of Latin America.
Is that their headquarters?
That is their training headquarters. That is their support. See, in the past, we were surrounded by friends in water. They couldn't hit us here because they couldn't get to us. They couldn't get their logistics and their weapons and their support. Now they can.
Does the government know all of what you've just told us?
Yes.
Could they take them out if they could? Could
definitely.
they terminate with extreme prejudice, as they talk about?
Well, see, the Iran Gate thing and all this thing that gets into political, and politics get involved in it, and the American people see, our problem in the United States is that the American people aren't educated to what's going on. We need first to educate what the issues are, factually. Not from a political viewpoint, but factually, and then we, the people, are the ones that's going to stop terrorism from rising.
But unfortunately, it's going to happen here first, because we're not going to get that up in arms. We're going to read the paper and go, oh, isn't that terrible, and not do anything about it until it starts to happen here.
Well, these FAA regulations are still not in effect here. It's only over there because they said we haven't had terrorism here, and that's been the fallacy of our thinking in the world. If we would have thrown the tight security around these Pan Am flights coming out of Heathrow and out of Frankfurt, if we would have done the inspections, if we would have put the special X-ray machines in, this plastic explosives can be molded, it can be put in the lining of a suitcase, it can be very hard to find. But when they had this much information, you had to do something. You just don't let it go.
We read in your material that there are, say, 18,000 workers who have legitimate access to a plane at, say, Kennedy or LAX. How quickly could they put into service and take the expense that goes with it these requirements that would protect as much as possible?
Well, the precautions, even they didn't have this X-ray equipment. The new stuff that's being built. They could have thrown physical security with not that much extra cost. And yes, you have to go down, not only the passengers, but it has to go also to the workers that are working on around these airliners, because obviously they can be bribed, they can be bought, but you make sure every piece of luggage or baggage or anything that goes on that airplane gets checked. El Al does it. They've been doing it for years. And they do it physically. They're not doing it all.
Should workers be physically checked each time they report to work?
They should have to go through screening, just like anyone else.
This is a horrible thought here, but should this happen to someone, if they become a hostage of a terrorist in a minute or so, could you sum up the things that you need to know? It's horrifying to think of this process that you need to go through, but could you give us the prime points for a person should this happen to them?
Well, normally we say be alert and challenge, you know, if you're out. But in this case, you want to be docile. You don't want to challenge someone, the terrorist, with your eyes. You know, avert your eyes away from them. Don't look at them. Don't.
I thought you said you should look at them.
No, not as a not as a hostage. Not as a hostage. If you're out on the street, that's a different. We're talking about two different things here. But as a hostage.